Cognition, how we think about the social world. If I can get this thing started. Oops, I'm on the wrong page. There we go. Chapter 3. Next week we'll tackle Chapter 4 and Chapter 5. There's two kinds of social cognition. One is automatic thinking and the other is controlled thinking. In automatic thinking, it's quick. There's no conscious deliberation of thoughts, perceptions, or assumptions. But with controlled thinking, it's more effortful and deliberate. You have to think about yourself and the environment. It carefully selects the right course of action. Automatic thinking, not so much. It's just quick. It's snap decisions. People will often react correctly despite not consciously choosing to react in that manner. This is because they maintain schemas, mental templates used to make decisions. There are emotional reactions that they use, going with their gut feelings. They have expertise in select areas. Expertise is unconscious understanding that guides our answers, and implicit knowledge. That's knowledge and understanding we are not aware of consciously. So these things are there, they're always there, and they are aiding in our decisions, our social cognitions. Blind sight is the perception that is not recorded consciously. We do have this. Blind sight does exist. Prosopagnosia, this is a problem that it was just disclosed that somebody has. Wait a minute, it's a female. Brad Pitt has prosopagnosia. And there was a lady that has it. She doesn't recognize people's faces. I can't think of who it is, but we know that Brad Pitt has been diagnosed with prosopagnosia. This is people who suffer brain damage and can't recognize faces still have increased heart rates when confronted with familiar faces. Prosopagnosia, they don't really recognize people's faces, and evidently Brad Pitt has this problem as well. I'm trying to think who it is. Intuition, recognition, someone recognizing someone you know in a younger face of the individual, and subliminal is reacting to a stimulus that is below our threshold of recognition, but we can still perceive it, but we do it unconsciously, subconsciously, subliminally. If you recognize this individual, that is John F. Kennedy when he was young. How about these two hippies? That's Bill and Hillary Clinton. How about this fellow? That's George W. Bush. And how about this guy? This is a tougher one. This guy's not an American president. That is Pope Francis. How about this guy? Everybody knows this guy. That's Johnny Depp. Schemas are organized structures of knowledge. They're built from experience. They contain causal relations. They're formed from a theory about how the social world operates. People with expertise on a topic have well-developed schema about that topic. People create scripts that represent schemas about events, and we do this all the time. When you go into McDonald's, you know exactly how it works. Now things have changed in McDonald's. Now there's an app that you can use, and you can order online or with your telephone app, and just go in and pick up your stuff. As curious as that is. So these are schemas. We have schemas for everything. Maybe you want a Wendy's hamburger. So if you, what do? Do you go in? Do you drive around through the drive-through to get your hamburger? Probably you don't sit down and wait for a waiter, because then that's never going to happen. That's not part of the schema of Wendy's. Gender schemas are cognitive structures for processing information according to maleness and femaleness. Use of gender schema reinforces social stereotypes about gender. Not everyone is gender schematic. And of course, as society changes, gender schematics are changing every day. I was reading an article. I was reading an article about a lady who said that she was a tomboy when she was a child, and what was it? She was a tomboy, and because she was a tomboy, when it was time for her to go off to school, off to college, um, they didn't know what to do with her because she acted more like a boy than a girl, a male than a female. And at that point, she met a soldier, and the soldier wasn't fooled by the gender schemas that most people held, and of course he dated her, and eventually he married her. Oh, it was she was he he was the roommate of the guy that she was from her hometown, who was only dating her because for a favor as for someone. And he said, "My roommate's got a Civil War musket. Would you like to see it?" And of course, since she was a tomboy, she did. And when she met the guy, then the two of them interacted, and he thought it was cool that she was a little bit more masculine than other people, or than other women that he had interacted with, and they got married. Schemas can be applied rapidly and automatically when we encounter other people. Of course, this can lead to stereotypes. Schemas can help us deal with the new situations by giving us a basis for interpreting new situations. I'm punk, so I must rebel. I'm Asian, so I must like math. I dye my hair crazy colors, so I must be looking for attention. I'm a person, so I must be stereotyped. And that is an interesting way to look at things. Schemas are a good way to organize your thoughts and give structure to our memories by filling in the blanks when we're trying to remember. Schemas can aid us in paying attention by adding organization to our thoughts. And that's one of the reasons why we have schemas. It gives us the ability to organize. Of course, some of us maintain schemas a little bit more structured than other individuals, and because of that, of course, sometimes they create stereotypes. Once a schema is activated, we see more information consistent with the schema. We process the information more quickly, we remember it better. A note, schemas can be activated outside conscious awareness. Sometimes this is the way, and this is usually where stereotypes come from. This is known as accessibility. Recent experiences will increase our accessibility to the schemas that deal with these experiences, and this is known as priming. Something can become primed for three reasons. It's chronically accessible due to past experience, accessible because it is related to a current goal, temporarily accessible because of our recent experience. And this is what was going on. When I was trying to remember the story that I had, I just read this about an hour ago, this story about the young lady who was a tomboy and didn't fit in to her. She was from the South, and she really didn't fit in. Her tomboy image didn't fit into the schema of females in the South. And for that reason, she was kind of rejected by her own kind, by her own town where she lived. And she was, like I said, this guy was only dating her because he was the friend of the families. And that's why he dated her. And of course, when she came in contact with the other guy, the other individual didn't grow up in the same small town. Therefore, he didn't have the same schemas that they did, and he didn't reject her like they did. And he fell in love, and she fell in love, and they got married. And of course, she said the reason that she fell in love with him was because of his musket. And he said the reason he fell in love with her was because she appreciated his family's heirloom. A self-fulfilling prophecy is the case whereby people have an expectation about what another person is like, which influences how they act toward that person, which causes that person to behave consistently with the people's original expectations, making the expectations come true. Teachers will do this with their students, maintaining the stereotypes that minorities will struggle to the point of failure, and girls will be good and boys will misbehave. And of course, these are all self-fulfilling prophecies. Hopefully you have never fulfilled a self-fulfilling prophecy for your teacher, for people that are looking at you. This is the stereotypes that really irritate me. In 1968, Rosenthal and Jacobson assigned special status to random students and told their teachers about the special status. At the end of the year, the special students had excelled because it created a warmer emotional climate for those students, giving them more personal attention, encouragement, and support. It gave them more challenging material. They gave them more and better feedback. It gave them more opportunities to respond in class and gave them longer to respond. Now, one of the things that used to happen back in the 80s and 90s, we had the Talented and Gifted program. And if you got into the Talented and Gifted programs, they treated you differently. The teachers treated you differently. And I always thought, well, this isn't right. Why don't we just treat all of our students the same, give them all the same material, and we'll see if everybody excels. And of course, this is also a self-fulfilling prophecy. Heuristics are rule of thumb strategies that enables an individual to make quick, efficient judgments about a situation. We use heuristics to promote our own survival. Humans as a species have developed heuristics to ensure that survival takes place. Being right isn't nearly as important as being alive. One of the most common heuristics that we use is detecting typicalness when making a decision. This is known as representativeness heuristics. The representative heuristics are often applied even against overwhelming odds because we trust our instincts so frequently. And this is looking at tan lines from typical summer activities. This individual's a water skier. This individual is a mountain biker. This individual is a scuba diver. This individual is a rollerblader. This is a computer programmer, as you can see, has no tan lines. And this is a tennis player. And we can read this from people's tan lines. This is kind of a representative heuristic. 70 engineers and 30 lawyers were interviewed, and there is a random sample from their interviews. He's a twice-divorced man who spends most of his free time at a country club. He regrets following in his father's footsteps. He wishes he hadn't spent so much time in college on academics and instead spent more time socializing so he wouldn't be so quick to argue with people. Is he a lawyer or is he an engineer? 80% said that he was a lawyer. Why? Because he argued. He likes to argue with people. Linda is a 31-year-old, single, outspoken, and very bright. She majored in philosophy. As a student, she was deeply concerned with issues of discrimination and social justice, and also participated in anti-nuclear demonstrations. Is Linda a bank teller, or is she a college professor? Lovely Linda. And of course, this is one that I made up myself. There is no right answer to this question. Thomasina is very shy and withdrawn, invariably helpful, but with little interest in people or in the world of reality. A meek and tidy soul, she has a need for order and structure and a passion for detail. Is Thomasina a librarian or is she a doctor? Representative heuristics. An example of a representative heuristic is the Barnum effect. The Barnum effect is a phenomenon that when a general nebulous description is given to an individual of themselves, they believe it strongly, despite the fact that it could be true of anyone. The way people accept the findings of a personality test is an example of the Barnum effect. While people tend to be slow to deduce particular instances from a general truth, they are remarkably quick to infer general truth from a vivid instance. This is known as the availability heuristic. In the South, far more rapes are committed by white males than black males. But because the rape of white women by black males is so widely publicized, White women are more likely to fear a stranger who is black than one who is white. And this may not work. Yes, it does. Okay, this is the Willie Horton commercial from the H.W. Bush, the first Bush. This was one of his advertisements. He was running against Dukakis, Mike Dukakis.
Bush and Dukakis on crime. Bush supports the death penalty for first-degree murderers. Dukakis not only opposes the death penalty, he allowed first-degree murderers to have weekend passes from prison. One was Willie Horton, who murdered a boy in a robbery, stabbing him 19 times. Despite a life sentence, Horton received 10 weekend passes from prison. Horton fled, kidnapped a young couple, stabbing the man and repeatedly raping his girlfriend. Weekend prison passes. Dukakis on crime.
Wow. Okay, it was really kind of an interesting. I'm going to show it to you again. And this time I want you to look at how tall Willie Horton is and how scary he is.
Bush and Dukakis on crime. Bush supports the death penalty for first-degree murderers. Dukakis not only opposes the death penalty, he allowed first-degree murderers to have weekend passes from prison. One was Willie Horton, who murdered a boy in a robbery, stabbing him 19 times. Despite a life sentence,
look how tall he is
Horton
compared to
received
the
10
prison
weekend
guards.
passes from prison. Horton fled, kidnapped a young couple, stabbing the man and repeatedly raping his girlfriend. Weekend prison passes. Dukakis on crime.
Okay. So why in the world would he show that that advertisement? And the answer is because he was trying to get the white vote. He was trying to scare people into thinking that if a more liberal individual was elected president, like Dukakis, that he would allow black men to rape white women. Unfortunately, as humans, we tend to base our heuristics on what is in our memory rather than take time to analyze a situation. We assume that if something comes readily to mind, then it is commonplace, not always true. Because pictures of plane crashes are more likely to make the paper, people see airplane travel as more dangerous than automobile travel. However, statistics show that you are 26 times more likely to die in a car than an airplane. Cultures will often influence the way that people think. People in Western cultures tend to have an analytic thinking style, focusing on objects without considering surrounding context. People in Eastern cultures use a holistic thinking style, focusing on the overall context relation between objects. Controlled thinking is thinking that is conscious, intentional, voluntary, and effortful. There is a question as to how much of our behavior comes under the control of controlled thinking and how much is dictated by automatic thinking. Controlled thinking gives us the feeling of free will. The more people believe in free will, the more likely they will help others. The less people believe in free will, the more likely they will participate in immoral actions such as cheating. They feel that society controls them and they are only cheating society, not themselves. Counterfactual thinking refers to mentally simulating events to imagine alternative scenarios. The closer an outcome, the more likely an individual will participate in counterfactual thinking. Research shows that the closer an individual comes to winning, the more regret that they will feel. The more significant the event, the more likely the individual will participate in counterfactual thinking. Playing over and over again in our minds the accidental death of someone close to us is very common. However, we tend to live with less regret over an incident that we did than things that we didn't do. Trying and failing seems less regrettable than never trying at all. From Alfred Lord Tennyson, the poem In Memoriam, number 27 in 1850. I hold it true, whate'er befall. I feel it when I sorrow most. 'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. Counterfactual thinking. While winners are always happy, research has shown that the unhappiest person in a three-tiered winner's podium is the second-place finisher. The second place finisher thinks about how he didn't come in first. The third place finisher is happy because he didn't come in fourth and not win a medal. And as you can see, this is the guy that came in first, this is the guy that came in second, and this is the guy that came in third. This is the person that came in first, there's the person that came in third, and this is the person that came in second. First, second, and third. First, second, and third. One way to improve your thinking is to understand that we place way too much faith in our judgments. This is known as the overconfidence barrier. We would be better off if we used analysis in our decisions rather than trusting ourselves to be brilliant all the time. And of course, I do this to myself. I make mistakes. A couple days ago, I was driving the lawnmower. I have a riding lawnmower, and I ran it underneath a tree, and I did something stupid. I hit the wrong direction. There's a pedal for going forward and a pedal for going backwards. It's a John Deere, and by golly, I hit that forward twice, and because of that, I broke the hood, and now I've got a big crack, a big hole in the hood of my tractor, of my lawn tractor, and my John Deere sign fell off the front. And that's the end of the chapter. You hearing about what a dumb thing that I did the other day. So that's chapter 3. We'll talk about chapter 4 and 5 next week, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, 4 and 5 next week. So have a good week.